All right, Doom Vivamus Vivamus Epicureans. This is the Marvel Epic Collection Podcast One-Shot Edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
Doing really good because we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club. So this one-shot is going to be our brief thoughts on today's issue, which is X-Men number... Wait a minute. I've got number 100 up here on my thing. Wait a minute. Uh-oh. I might have seriously goofed up here, guys. I did. All right. You know what? I'm just going to keep because in the interest of time, Stojr and I have got a bunch of stuff to do. I'm just going to keep that blank screen up there, and I'll get the picture of the issue on the back end here. All right, so X-Men number 99. This is Death Star Rising. Frank Chiara takes over on inks. The team with Professor X's friend Dr. Corbeau, commander of a space shuttle, or the team with Dr. Corbeau commandeer a space shuttle that takes them to an old SHIELD space station, which is housing Project Armageddon, who are responsible for the Sentinels right down, and at the very least responsible for the abduction of Jean Grey, Banshee, Wolverine, and Professor X. We get near non-stop action of the X-Men fighting in space, ramming into space stations, and destroying Sentinels. Their captured teammates are rescued, but the X-Men are faced with a new foe, which are the original X-Men. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
So, I think that you can definitely tell that there's a different inker on this book. Everything's a little bit darker, a little bit muddier. Not to say it's bad. It's just, it starts to feel a bit different. It's interesting, some of the real world similarity to this third page here of a judge's house being burned down who was against the anti-mutant sentiment. I think recently in the news there was a judge's house who was burned down in the U.S. So some things never change, I guess, right? History repeats itself, as I talked to the history teacher. It's nice to see Geraldo before he went down and tried to open up Al Capone's safe. Nice little cameo by him on that same page. We get the first introduction of something going on in Ireland. I believe it's Ireland, or Scotland, maybe, I guess it is, in Banshee's hometown. So I find all that interesting. The nonstop action's great. I'm not loving the art. Like, it's not terrible, but like you can tell it's different. I'm thinking of the way that Nightcrawler looks on page 147, sort of knocking the Sentinel with a spike or whatnot. The way Colossus looks on page 149 reminds me a lot of there was a character in the first 10 issues of the 90s X-Men book, the adjectiveless one, that was in some backup stories. And I forget his name, but I always thought he was Colossus until I got old enough to kind of like look him up. But he's somebody that like Maverick was hunting down. But he basically looks like Colossus, but like kind of darker and muddier and things like that. And that's the way they kind of drew him here. Mm-hmm. Story-wise, this is really interesting. Scott's beating the crap out of the bad guy, is told to stop, and then we get the big reveal of old versus new, which is that's classic comic books right there. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and I agree with you with the way Colossus was looking kind of weird. I was just thinking that on some of those pages we were looking at. But as I said, in the summary there, this is nonstop action. Personally, I loved it. It's exciting. It's frantic. The kid in me just wants to go out and punch some robots after reading this. I am becoming a huge fan of Cockrum's splash pages. The shuttle launch. Let me see if I can pull that picture up real quick here. The shuttle launch is on page 141. Showing the countdown and then each of the members' thoughts is such a simple thing, but such an interesting framing device too. And I also think that page in particular speaks to a lot of the futurism of the comic as well. The Space Shuttle program didn't launch its first mission until 1980. Of course, my notes are off here. I think it's 1981. Like the last digit of the date is missing. I think it's 1981. Or maybe it's just 1980. Anyway, it's 5 years after this book comes out. the shuttle program was in the planning stages in the 70s, so it was known to the public. They knew that this was going to happen, but it hadn't flown yet. So actually depicting the space shuttle going up into space, that's the future. That's what space travel is going to look like. So just really neat, great stuff.
Yeah, and I think those, like, again, I keep drawing these parallels in my head to the modern Krakoa era of the book, because Orcus, the villains in that area, are humans and robots, and they're in space. I mean, it just feels like, Hickman wanted to kind of invoke all of those feelings of the classic X-Men back then as he rebooted things in that Dawn of X era. So, as somebody who, didn't pay as much attention when I read these books originally, and now kind of going through them with a fine-tooth comb, I'm seeing those parallels to the way that writers are writing things today. And as you go through these epic collections and these old issues, you see that a lot. You see, like, storylines that you read, and then you're like, wait a second, this looks like just like something I read in the early 2000s or the 90s. Well, that wasn't the first time that particular story beats or that those feelings were invoked. They're usually aping something that happened 20 years earlier from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes when it's a brand new take, it's a joy. Sometimes it feels just like the same old thing. Honestly, I feel like that for a lot of the 70s Marvel books that I've read. That just seems like they're rehashing the 60s, but it gets better, I think, later on.
Yep.
All right, well, if you've enjoyed our thoughts, follow us on YouTube, where we are going to read, rate, and review a full Epic Collection trade paperback every other week. Thank you very much for watching. Stojr, any final thoughts?
Yep. Looking forward to getting into issue 100 and continue on the reading club.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. See you next time.
See ya.